You need to sit in the theatre and understand that there are people who are different than who you are, and that's when the magic happens. Because then, the work really opens your eyes and frees your mind and touches your heart, and it creates a kind of understanding and empathy.
The headlines will tell me something, the story itself will tell me something, but there's always something in between the lines. There's always something I feel that's buried there.
I studied law at the National University of Singapore, and while I was there, I met some very good friends who were doing theatre. Alvin Tan, Haresh Sharma, Ong Keng Sen, who now have their theatre companies of their own, led me down the garden path, and I just opened my eyes to the possibilities of that. After I graduated, I became involved in several landmark productions, which included Army Days, Beauty World, and M. Butterfly. Army Days confirmed for me that I wanted to be a part of Singapore theatre because I was performing in a local play that made me feel understood, that made me feel a part of a community. I received a scholarship. I was Singapore's first art scholar to the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama after doing those first 3 plays, and embarked on a journey. After a career in film, television, and founding 2 companies, I decided to come home to contribute to a nascent art scene. And after a stint as the Associate Artistic Director of Singapore Repertory Theatre, I left to found Wild Rice. It's been an incredible journey. Wild Rice is 25 years old this year. We've done 115 unique productions and reached out to more than 1 million people in Singapore, but also in 20 cities around the world. We do new work, hotel. We do the classics, but reimagined for Singapore, Animal Farm. And we also look at the Singapore canon. So the existing texts and kind of reimagining the classics, so we actually kind of build on the legacy.
When I was in school, I was part of this thing called a Creative Arts Program. It was a series of seminars and workshops, and one of the people who had come to conduct workshop is this playwright called Haresh Sharma. So he picked me up as a kind of apprentice playwright. He became my mentor. I spent a lot of time in the necessary stage at that point in my teenage years, and after that, really dreaming of wanting to become playwright. And I think one fateful day, after watching something at the substation, I was hanging out at that wonderful coffee shop with outdoor seating called S11. Lo and behold, somewhere sitting near me was Ivan Heng. So I went up to him and said, "Hey, Ivan, I watched you in a play, you're really good." And then it became a mutual appreciation club because he said, "Oh, I have your book on my bedside table." And I think because of that, I felt that he wasn't so much on a pedestal anymore. I felt, okay, by the way, I've written a play. Would you like to take a look at it? Passed it to him. It was a play called Landmarks Asian Boys Volume 2. He read it and he felt, okay, Wild Rice wants to do it. And it was eventually staged in the year 2004. And this year, I'm 20 years with the company already. So I think when it comes to choosing subject matter for my plays, I'm very drawn towards hidden histories, towards counter-narratives, stories that are on the margins of Singapore society. But I'm really convinced that good art comes from those things. So I would say one thing about the theatre is that there's always a sense of urgency, I feel, to some of the stuff that we do. Because there's actually quite a short runway between thinking of something and putting up a show, right? I think in theatre we're like, okay, what happened this year, and how should we talk about it?
Hot button
issues, that's right, yeah. And I think as artists, we always have to keep our ears to the ground.
And wear our hearts on our sleeves.
Or other people's hearts.
But I think when we say hot button issues, people always think, we are provocative and we are kind of being mischievous. But I think that's really quite far from the truth.
Yeah.
Because I think nowadays, anything around race, religion, politics, gender and sexual orientation, polarizing, divisive. And I think that actually the theatre provides a place where people can come and encounter points of view that are not their own. And therefore, you really have the capacity to hold more than one point of view in your head and in your heart,
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's a way also for us to recognize that these conflicts exist, but also at the same time, through art, find a language in which we can actually talk about them. There are ways to debate, there are ways to engage in discussion about these things, that does not necessarily have to escalate into something ugly.
Well, conflict. It's always about conflict, right? I mean, that makes the drama.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's always about seeing two points of view, kind of conflict resolution.
Yeah. So I would say in terms of evolution, maybe some of the earlier plays were asking what is it that makes us Singaporean. But then I think that has really expanded into what are these other communities who should also be considered Singaporeans, right? So whether we're talking about queer communities, we're talking about certain ethnic communities that are not, say, so much a part of the mainstream.
Yes.
We are also talking about migrant workers. We're talking about artists with disabilities as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say it's moving towards a much more diverse and plural direction.
One people, one nation, one Singapore. Actually, many peoples, many Singapores, one nation, if you so identify, right? And say, I belong here. And in the theatre, you see the different Singapores collide. I think that's the magic. I mean, that's what you write a lot about. You put these characters which don't understand or appreciate each other in a conversation.
Different values, different ideologies, right? And I think that the theatre then becomes kind of a forum for us to negotiate our differences.
Yeah.